You know, there are some images in cartoons that are just so iconic, we never even think to question them. But seriously, take a second and think about it. Why on earth is a giant bird in a mailman's hat delivering babies? It's a truly bizarre idea that we've all just kind of accepted. Today, we're going to dive into where that whole story actually comes from.
There it is, the classic image. So the question is, why a stork? It seems totally random, right? Why not a powerful eagle or a regular old pigeon, or heck, in today's world, a delivery drone? Well, the answer turns out to be this wild story that involves ancient folklore, a massive biological coincidence, and surprisingly, old Hollywood censorship.
To really get to the bottom of this, we first need to understand a little trick that animators use all the time: visual shorthand. It's basically a cheat code for creators. It's why a light bulb over a character's head instantly means idea, or why a big cloud of dust means a fight is happening. And the stork carrying a baby? Oh yeah, that's one of the most successful pieces of visual shorthand ever created.
And boy, has this delivery service been around for a while in pop culture. I mean, from the exhausted stork in Dumbo all the way to the high-tech factory in the movie Storks, this bird is an absolute icon. But here's the big twist. Animators didn't invent this. They actually inherited it from a much, much older story.
That's right, they inherited it. The whole idea of a stork as the baby bringer was already a well-known social lie. You know, a polite little fib parents would tell their kids for centuries before the first movie was ever even made. So to find the real origin, we have to go way, way back.
Our journey is going to start in medieval Northern Europe, because this is where the story truly begins, not with an animator's sketch, but with this massive, almost unbelievable coincidence.
So you have to remember, for people back then, everything was a sign from nature. To them, this wasn't a coincidence, it was cause and effect. The birds arrive, and then the babies arrive. The connection seemed completely obvious, even if, it was totally wrong. This simple observation laid all the folkloric groundwork for everything that came after.
Okay, but that's just the ancient history. What really made the stork a non-negotiable rule in animation was something much more modern: 20th century Hollywood censorship. And believe me, this is where the story takes a really interesting turn.
Let me introduce you to the Hays Code. For decades, from the 1930s all the way to the late 60s, this was the absolute law in Hollywood. It was this incredibly strict rule book for what you could and could not show on screen. And one of the biggest no-nos was that you could not, under any circumstances, show or even talk about the facts of life. And this right here just lays out the problem perfectly for animators at places like Disney and Warner Bros. Let's say a character is having a baby. How do you possibly show that on screen? You couldn't show a pregnant woman. You couldn't even say the word pregnant. So what could you show? A stork with a bundle. It was the perfect censor-proof solution.
So this is the key takeaway. For animators, the stork wasn't just a cute fairy tale they decided to use. No way. It was a legal loophole. It was their get-out-of-jail-free card. It allowed them to tell a story about a new baby arriving, which is a pretty fundamental part of life, without ever breaking the Hays Code. It just neatly sidestepped the whole biology thing altogether.
Okay, so we get it. Hollywood needed a workaround. But out of all the myths and folklore out there, why did this specific one get the starring role? I mean, what made the stork the perfect candidate for the job? Well, first off, the story was already super famous and considered totally family-friendly. The legendary fairy tale writer Hans Christian Andersen wrote a popular story called The Storks way back in 1838. So in the super prim and proper Victorian era that followed, this became the official story parents told their curious kids. The audience was already prepped, they knew the myth, and they were cool with it.
And the bird itself was just perfect for the role. For one, storks often build their big nests on top of chimneys, which creates this wonderful parallel to Santa Claus bringing a special delivery, right? They're also known for being very attentive parents that mate for life, so they were a great symbol of family values. But this last one, this is my absolute favorite reason.
People literally created physical evidence to back up the myth. You know that common pinkish birthmark that a lot of babies have on the back of their neck? Yeah, it's got a fancy scientific name, Navis flammeus nuchae. But for centuries, folklore had a much better name for it: a stork bite. It was supposed to be the little mark left behind from where the stork carried the baby in its bill. I mean, how can you argue with physical evidence like that?
All right, let's put it all together. We have an ancient coincidence, a really famous fairy tale, and a super strict censorship code. This is the perfect storm of events that came together to cement the stork's place in animation history forever.
You can actually watch this trope get locked into place in real time. It starts popping up early, like in a 1932 Mickey Mouse cartoon. Then Warner Bros. Introduces the whole baby factory in the sky idea. And then, of course, 1941, Dumbo. That's the big one. That's the image we all think of. The idea got so common that by 1946, Looney Tunes was already making fun of it to parody the baby boom. It wasn't just a story anymore, it was basically a rule.
So yeah, the next time you see a cartoon stork, remember it's not just some random silly gag. It's the end result of this fascinating story that connects medieval farmers looking at the sky, proper Victorian parents, and stressed out Hollywood animators trying to outsmart the censors. It's a perfect storm of history that created one of animation's most unforgettable images.
And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other cartoon rules are hiding these crazy histories right there in plain sight? Like, why on earth do so many of those classic characters, Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, all of them, wear those big white gloves? Well, that just might be a story for another time.